Tony, a dapper 29-year-old Lagos entrepreneur, smoothed his Italian-tailored suit. Today was his wedding to the stunning Vivian, a 24-year-old goddess whom he adored for her elegance and, well, ample endowments. His secret obsession, however, was about to become public spectacle. He had done the unthinkable. He'd invited all his notable ex-girlfriends. There were 6 of them, formidable women with fiery histories. His best man, Tunde, looked horrified. "Tony, this is madness. They will ruin you." Tony just smirked, adjusting his cufflinks. "Relax, Tunde. They are proof of my progression. I want them to see what they missed. I want them to witness the final trophy." The invitations were cryptic, marked with a red hibiscus, an old symbol from his dating past, guaranteeing they would all show up. The open-air ceremony, overlooking the Ikoyi lagoon, was breathtaking. But as the first luxury sedan pulled up, Tony's confident smile faltered slightly. The air thickened with suspense, not romance. He glanced toward the VIP section, where 6 perfectly dressed, yet deadly, women were taking their seats. The main show was about to begin. He knew he'd wanted drama, but he was starting to feel a cold knot of dread form in his stomach.
The music swelled, announcing Vivian's entrance. She glided down the aisle, a vision in pristine white lace, her silhouette confirming every juicy rumor of her famed figure. The guests gasped, captivated. Tony, however, was momentarily distracted. His eyes scanned the row of Exes. There was Sade, the fierce lawyer, sitting ramrod straight. Nneka, the quiet artist, looking surprisingly chic. And Lola, the fiery socialite, already whispering conspiratorially to her neighbor. They looked less like guests and more like a jury. As Vivian reached the altar, the priest began the formalities. Suddenly, a commotion erupted. Sade stood up, holding a small silver box. "Objection," she announced, her voice echoing across the courtyard. Guests turned their heads, murmuring excitedly. Vivian frowned, her beautiful face tightening into a mask of confusion. Tony's heart pounded against his ribs. This was faster than he'd anticipated. He wanted a reaction, but not before the vows. He shot Tunde a look of sheer panic. Sade approached the altar, her high heels clicking deliberately on the marble floor. Lola and Nneka followed, forming a silent, ominous perimeter. This was no polite objection. This felt like an organized intervention. Sade ignored the priest's stammering and placed the silver box on the altar. "Tony," she stated, her lawyer's voice sharp and precise, "we 6, the former occupants of your heart, have a joint wedding gift for you and your beautiful bride." Vivian, now fully alert and furious, stepped forward, her hand resting protectively on Tony's arm. "Whatever this is, it can wait until after the ceremony," she said, her voice dripping with icy authority. Lola stepped closer, her wide, expressive eyes fixated on Tony. "Oh, it can't wait, Vivian. It's a collective declaration, a chronicle of Tony's love life," she purred, a wicked smile playing on her lips. Sade opened the box. Inside, resting on a velvet cushion, were 7 meticulously carved wooden dolls, each representing an X, including a slightly larger, more busty one. Tony stared, his blood running cold. He immediately recognized the strange artisan detail on the dolls. They were a bizarre private joke from his past. The next second, all 6 Exes began to sing. It wasn't a sweet melody, it was a loud, slightly off-key rendition of a popular Yoruba song, but with very specific, damning, and increasingly hilarious lyrics about Tony's shortcomings. The scandalous song was a chronological 2-minute summary of Tony's biggest dating flaws, his inability to commit, his penchant for grand gestures that never materialized, and even a specific embarrassing incident involving a runaway goat at a family dinner. The crowd, initially stunned,
began to titter, then outright laugh. Vivian stood rigid, her wedding dress seeming to constrict around her. Her face was a storm cloud of humiliation and rage. Tony wanted the ground to swallow him whole. This was far beyond the dramatic spectacle he'd envisioned. It was a character assassination by choral arrangement. When the song ended, Sade took the microphone again. Each of us accepted his invitation to confirm one suspicion, that Tony, a man who collects women like trophies, must finally face his history. Now, for the final gift. She gestured. 2 more exes, Kami and Ifeoma, rolled a large easel towards the altar. It was covered with a white sheet. Tunde shook his head desperately at Tony, silently warning him. Tony, pale and sweating profusely under his suit, watched the curtain fall. Under the sheet was a large, glossy collage. It wasn't a collection of embarrassing photos, as Tony feared. Instead, it was a perfectly edited, professional-grade photo montage of Tony and each ex-girlfriend, but with one central theme. Every ex was photographed in the exact same pose and setting that Tony had used for his engagement announcement photos with Vivian. Same beach, same sunset, same loving gaze. The title of the collage, written in bold, gold script, read, Tony's Rehearsals, The Final Take. The implications were clear. Vivian was just the final model in a series of identical photo shoots. A collective, "Oh!" rippled through the guests. Vivian's lower lip trembled. She looked from the collage to Tony, then back to the 6 women, who now stood shoulder to shoulder, a formidable wall of shared resentment. She gently removed her hand from Tony's arm. "Tony," she whispered, her voice dangerously calm, "is this true? Did you really rehearse your engagement with all of them?" Tony stammered, his mind racing for a believable lie. This was the moment he had wanted, the ultimate public recognition of his appeal, but the price was terrifyingly steep. Vivian didn't wait for an answer. She took the microphone from Sade. Her composure returned instantly, but with a terrifying new intensity. "Thank you, ladies," she said, her voice clear and carrying. "Your presentation has been illuminating." She looked Tony dead in the eye, a cold, hard glint of steel replacing the love he thought he saw moments earlier. "Tony invited you here, not just to show off his trophy, but because he thrives on spectacle. He wanted to feel like a prize." She paused, taking a breath that swelled her chest, capturing every eye in the crowd. "But what Tony didn't realize is that I also know how to put on a show." She snapped her fingers. Instantly, the large decorative screens behind the altar flickered to life. The collage of Tony's rehearsals was replaced by a video. It was a professionally shot, high-definition clip of Vivian, smiling brightly, talking directly to the camera. The title read, Vivian's Next Chapter. Tony watched in stunned silence, a chilling sense of betrayal washing over him. The video clip began to play. In it, Vivian addressed the audience, explaining that she had accepted Tony's proposal not for love, but to secure a high-profile platform. She revealed that she was launching a luxury, high-end fashion line specifically designed for curvier women, and nothing creates buzz like a scandalous society wedding. Then, the real shocker. The video showed Vivian meeting with each of Tony's ex-girlfriends in the weeks leading up to the wedding. They were not plotting revenge, they were providing insider information on Tony's ego, while simultaneously modeling Vivian's new collection. Sade, the lawyer, handled the contracts, Lola, the socialite, managed the guest list, and Neka, the artist, designed the scandalous rehearsals collage. Vivian explained with a radiant smile that the 6 exes, having collectively experienced Tony's self-absorption, had agreed to turn his spectacle into their collaborative launch event. Tony's jaw dropped. The scandal he craved was happening, but he was not the orchestrator. He was the prop. Vivian took off her wedding veil, tossing it to the floor. "The wedding is off," she declared triumphantly. "The show, however, is on." She announced the details of her fashion line launch party, which would be held immediately after the non-wedding. As the guests cheered, captivated by the sheer audacity and cleverness of the twist, the 6 ex-girlfriends walked down the aisle, distributing beautifully packaged gift bags. Inside each was a lookbook for the new fashion line, featuring the Exes as models. Tony was left standing alone at the altar, shell-shocked. He wanted a scandalous, high-stakes public drama where his ex-girlfriends were forced to acknowledge his move up in the world. He got it. The spectacle was immensely juicy, suspenseful, and the entire focus of the city's gossip. Every paper would be running the story. He became the centerpiece of the most talked-about event in Lagos society, just as he subconsciously desired. But the shocking twist was that the women he'd sought to humiliate had used his ego as the launchpad for their own collective success. Tony had achieved his goal, but at the cost of his pride, becoming the scandalous footnote in Vivian's brilliant new beginning.